Do you need to have a perfect plan to start?
Somebody can give you a perspective, well, I think it'd be cool to do this thing, but they can never really give you a step-by-step guide to how you can achieve that. You need to be aware of the potential downsides, and you need to be okay with having those downsides, or at least having a plan to handle those downsides.
What's your take? Emotions, data?
Both. Everybody thinks it has to be an all well. It's like, is that this or that? It's not. It's this and that. Okay. Have I ever done something that I feel like is too good to go out now?
Most often times we have some very good ideas that we never see get done. We probably waiting for funding, waiting for the right time, and we're looking for the best people, but it never gets done. Today I have with me our dad is a man of many cups.
Hi.
Many hats.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good, I think. Nana do Ghana, but already inside. No, I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, actually, I think the first time we met is taking so long.
Yeah, fast to reconnect again.
Yeah.
I'm usually hiding, so. And weird thing actually is like the conversation we were having before we started recording, which is I'm in a phase of my life where I think I want to be more out there. That's probably the reason why, like, you say, hey, come do a podcast, and it's like, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm coming. Most times, as I said, no, by default. Like, it doesn't matter always asking or when, or it's like, I usually don't like, I don't know why, but yeah. So the timing was good. So I'm glad you're here.
Do you know why you're here? You know why we actually called you up?
Nope.
So you did this content where you were talking about what you did last year.
Yeah.
About setting up a certain number of goals and then actually being intentional about achieving them.
Yeah. Right. I didn't think a lot of people saw that video. I know some people saw it, but yeah, that was fun, because if you've spoken to me before, I'm an ideas person. So the people that spend time around me, the people that spend a little time around me, they're impressed by it. The people that spend a lot of time around me, they're tired of it. I always have ideas, and I think it's a gift, right? And yeah, everybody has ideas, but I think I have ideas in the sense that I'm able to think through very systematic solutions to things from a unique perspective, right? So somebody can give you a perspective, well, I think it'd be cool to do this thing, but they can never really give you a step-by-step guide to how you can achieve that, right? But usually for me, it's like almost a clear picture. Like if you tell me something right now, I'm like, oh, if you go left, you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. And if you go right, you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. But I think in 2024, so in 2022, I was in that stage where I had a lot of ideas. Every single time I spoke to somebody, oh, we can do this, oh, we can do that, oh, we can do this, we can do that. And by the time we got to the end of 2022, I was getting sick of myself. I was like, you can't have all these ideas and something was also happening to me, which was that year, I have to have a book, right? Or like a digital notes where I keep all my ideas. In 2021, 2022, a bunch of those things got built by other people. Yeah, right? So that was very frustrating for me because, well, I was both excited and frustrated. I was excited because I think, oh, I can predict trends, right? I could see where the world is kind of going and go like, well, I think something like this is necessary. But then it's frustrating because then I never do anything about it, right? And in most cases, I saw these things like 2 years before these people executed it. Like way before. So it was like, okay, if I started doing this thing then, I would have had a lot more runway on these people by the time they got here, right? So I got very like frustrated, like, man, like you're always talking and that's not enough. And this is the second time in my life that has happened. The first time it happened was in 2014, 15, when I was in the university. And I was like, you talk too much. Like you talk way too much. You have an idea for everything, you have an opinion for everything. But then by 2022, I kind of figured out that it's not enough to have just the ideas. There is a world, like my dream job, my dream world is to get paid for my ideas. Because I think I have really good ideas. And I think because of the way my brain functions and the things I'm able to read and all these different things, I'm actually able to synthesize things in a very unique way, right? So I think that's very valuable. And my dream goal is to be the guy that get called and is like, hey, we're trying to solve this really big problem. Do you have any ideas for us? Like that's my dream job. But I wasn't yet at the point, I'm not yet at the point where people are calling me for those things. Because for somebody to go like, we want your ideas, they would have to believe that your ideas are worth something. But before somebody can believe that your ideas are worth something, you may have to execute on some of them to get to a certain level of notoriety before they can go like, oh, that has really good ideas because he did this and he did this and he did that. So maybe we should bring him in for this, right? So in my logic, it was like, okay, I want to be paid for my thinking, but to be paid for my thinking, I need to prove that I have quality of thought. But the way to prove quality of thought is to execute, at least from the beginning, right? So beginning of that year, I was like, okay, my motto is like, doing is better, which is like, thinking is great, planning is great, wishing is great, you can do all these things, but like actually getting your foot and hands dirty and trying to get things done, like that's the most valuable thing you can get, right? So I made that my mantra for the year. And then the rule I gave myself was, for every idea that I have, I want to execute. And by execution, I don't mean like make it a big success. I just want to go like, oh, I think it'd be nice to do this. Do it. Oh, I think it might be nice to have this project. Do it, right? So my goal was, okay, at the end of 2023, I wanted to look back and go like, I said it would have been nice to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even if it was just like the test to see if the idea was viable. But then for everything I tell you about, I should have evidence of a proof of concept, right? So that's kind of like the journey that led to that, which led to me doing that video. So, okay, 2023, I tried all these different things, and here's kind of like what I learned, what I did. And that bit of that kind of carried over into 2024, because like in January, we did a conference called StartConf, literally, which was like, you know.
That was wow.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. We can talk a bit more about that, but yeah, so that was kind of how we got there, and that's how that video came. And I almost didn't do it. Like I recorded the video, it was like, who cares? Like, who really cares about all your little projects and the things you did? But I'm glad that got us.
Wait, honestly, I actually really found it interesting because I think I've been in similar situations before. And especially with the part we're talking about you being able to predict a number of years ahead, right?
Yeah.
And I think 2016, 2015, thereabout, I wanted to start a salad business.
Wow, that's way earlier than.
Yes, you realize right now there's this whole
Green
health, fitness culture. There's this whole thing.
Yeah,
it wasn't really a big deal some years back, right? So I was actually inspired by a woman I was working with. She used to take a lot of salads, right? When you go to the water sellers, you know the way people wouldn't. My mom wouldn't buy salad because she feels it's not treated well.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I said I was going to run the salad business. To be honest, I've just started. I got the name Indie Salad. I did a website.
Oh, yeah.
I did t-shirts. I even got a place for free.
Yo, that's wild.
A very wild place, but you know I never started.
No.
I was looking at what the target audience is looking like, if I'm to price.
Yeah.
If what is the nutrition value, I was looking for perfection.
Right, yeah.
That leads me to my second question, right? Do you need to have a perfect plan to start?
No. So plans and guesses, right? Like when you make a plan, you're basically making a guess of what you think would work. But you really don't know what will work.
Okay.
Right? Like there are very few cases where you can go like, oh, because we have all the data, I've been doing this for years, like very, very big entities and then really experienced people could plan for something they've been doing for a long time. So for example, you run a creative agency. If you've been doing a creative agency for a long time, you can plan your next project to a certain level of confidence because you know that, oh, if you're doing a branding thing, here's the steps to go through. If you're doing a video, here's the steps to go through. But outside of those things, if you're trying to start something, you don't need a perfect plan. Sometimes you don't even need a full plan. You need half a plan, right? You need like a very simple hypothesis of, okay, here's the problem I see. Here's what I think a solution could be. And then let me go test it.
Okay.
Because all the information that you actually need to solve that thing happens when you're in motion. So there is this quote I think I heard it somewhere, but I've kind of adopted it, which is like, motion creates clarity, right? We think that the way to get clear on something is to sit and think about it. Go like, oh, if I do this and if I do that, if I do that. But the reality is that you just don't know because there are so many variables you encounter as you go that will like kind of shape your plan, right? So if you think of your plan like a very raw like gem, right? Or an idea like a raw gem. Just get started, and then as you go, real life experiences will begin to polish it, right? They begin to tell you, okay, go left, go right. With that said, it's important to have a plan, not the perfect plan, right? Because, like I said, a plan is a guess, it's a hypothesis. So when you have a plan, you have something else to measure against. So for example, for this podcast, you have a plan, right? You have a hypothesis for it. But then when you put this video out, you get to know for a fact whether your plan is real or not, whether you were right or wrong about the things you thought you would achieve, right? But to get started, you need a plan. So I think people need plans, like very, very basic plans. But that's it. Don't spend any more time beyond like the very basic hypothesis of, oh, I think this will be okay. I think that will be okay. If anything, you should have a crazy bias towards action. Like the space, some of the most successful people I know, and by successful, I don't mean like, the big shots of billionaires, just my friends who are like well-to-do, they get in the spaces that, other people admire. I realize they have a very short time between when they have an idea and when they do something.
Okay.
Like very, very short. It's like I could get on the phone, one of them and say, I'm thinking of doing this thing. 3 days later, I have a link.
What if you get in trouble?
That's part of the game, right? What if you don't? Because the thing is, you will screw up.
But your screw up can be a big screw up.
Yes. So that's a very good point. So I think there are two kinds of failures, right? Or troubles, right? You have one you call like existential failures, right? Things that will completely wipe you out. So they will stop you from playing the game forever, right? But then there are things that are just mishaps that you can get over. I don't think 99% of things are not existential. Even the ones that you think are existential, they are not. Right? So like the truly, truly existential things, yeah, those ones you need to take your time, right? You need to kind of like think about it. You need to plan a little bit. You seek advice. But that's not where most people are. Unless you go for somebody or you're planning to do something shady that could land you in prison. Do you get what I'm saying? But like, I think in most majority of the cases, you're going to encounter discomfort and like minor setbacks, but they won't wipe you out completely, right? So it depends on the scale and the risk and all these different things. Like, yeah, maybe you need to like ask a few questions like, okay, would this fail? Would this work? And maybe talk to a friend or two, ask their opinion. But I don't know that most people listening to me are in that situation. Most people listening to this conversation are probably like trying to get started on a small idea, trying to like test a business or change jobs or, and those things aren't existential. Even the ones that you feel are existential, they are not. Like over a year or 2 or 3, they will pass. So fun story, when I was starting my design career in 2019, I got a referral from a mentor. It was this executive chef. She was the OG at the time. And she wanted a brand for this new lounge that she was starting, right? So I was like, cool. I assessed her, she's internationally exposed, all these different things. I'm like, I want to give this woman like a heavy invoice. So I dreamt up I think at the time it was like, I don't know, like $1,500 or something. And this was 2019, so $1,500 was like, very few creatives were that confident in sending a $1,500 invoice, right? But I am risky like that. That's just a very important thing. I am a high risk person, and I take more risk than most people. So that may also color the things I'm saying, right? But I went to this woman's house, I met her, I sent the invoice, and she goes like, yeah, but I need to see something because I don't trust you, I don't know you, right? So like, and I had a few decisions to make, and I knew I was making the wrong decision about how I'm approaching that, but I made it anyways because it was the most convenient thing to do. At the end of the day, I sensed the project, she didn't like it. The person that recommended me was disappointed, and because the recommendation came from my mentor, I feel like I was also embarrassing him. And this was a highly connected woman, right? So at the time, I felt like my world was over. Like I would never get another job as a creative ever again. Like this was the end. I agonized over it for like weeks, right? After like some 3-4 months, my next client came to the door and I forgot it happened. But then I learned what I did wrong, and I tried to use that information to improve myself, right? But that fear of what if I send the invoice or what if I do this and something goes wrong, like my mentor and I are still fine. Like he still recommended a bunch of people to me. Like one of the ladies on that project still came back to me later because she needed help with something, right? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? So I feel like I've had enough of these experiences to know that we often exaggerate what failure is going to look like, and we underestimate what success will look like. So when you're going to try something new, you're like, oh, if it fails this, but it's like, okay, what if it works out, right? So I don't think those failures are existential. I don't think I'm going to wipe you out. Like, and whatever trouble you get in, it's not that deep. Like, you can. Yeah, I think you can get out of it.
Yeah, you said you are a high risk taker.
Yeah.
You know, calculated risk.
Yeah.
Do you always need that?
Do you always need calculated risks? It depends. Because I think every risk is context-based. What's high risk for me could be low risk for somebody. What's low risk for me could be high risk for someone, right? With that said, if you are taking risks, yes, you need to be calculated in some sense, but not in the way that I think most people think. For me, you need to know two things. What are the upsides? What are the downsides? Can I live with the downsides? Mm-hmm. That's about as far as I go calculation-wise. If I can live with the downsides, I'm taking the risk, because then the upsides is like infinite, right? So yes, like calculate in the sense of like know what is at stake if you lose, because that's another thing. Many people don't, and it's a contradictory statement to what I said before. Many people overestimate failure, and then they don't expect it. Like, so for example, let's say someone's trying to start a project, right? They are in one of two conditions. They either overestimating their sense of failure, so they don't start, but when they do start, they don't take failure into account at all. They just completely overestimate their success, right? This is going to be like a straight win. And they never pause to ask, okay, what happens if I'm wrong? What happens if this doesn't go the way I plan, right? So for me, calculated risks is like, okay, I want to go here. If I lose, here's what's at stake. I'm fine with that. Here's how I'm going to fix it. And if I win, yay. Am I okay with losing? If the answer is yes, then that's about the only calculation you need. Because everything else is going to be, I think, just a mixture of things that could create excuses that will stop from taking action. So you need to be aware of the potential downsides, and you need to be okay with having those downsides, or at least having a plan to handle those downsides. If you're not okay with the downsides, then you should probably not take that risk, right? So that if you want to be calculated, right, that's kind of like my thing, which is, yeah, count the costs. Like the Bible says, I'm Christian. Like, if someone's trying to build a house, they need to count the cost. If you're trying to like launch a project, start something, like there's opportunity cost, right? There's always risk. If you can live with the downsides, I say go for it. But if you can't live with the downsides, then it's like, maybe it's like reduce the downsides, right? So maybe instead of trying to build this big project, do something much smaller. Something whose downside you can handle. Because you can't also say that you're only going to do things with no downsides. Because like it doesn't exist. Like every single decision you make has a downside to it. It's just that at the end of the day, is a net of both upside and downside positive, right? Is the upside more fruitful? Like, give me an example. If you go to buy a watch, right? Mm-hmm. You're losing money, aren't you?
Yeah, but watch is overrated though.
Hey, that's debatable. If you fight for that one at all. That's besides the point. But when you're going to buy a watch, right, you're losing money. You're giving money away. But what you're getting in return, in the context, is worth more to you than the money you're giving away. So there's a downside to that. You walking to the watch seller, you standing in line, the time you're losing, the stress it will cost you, you go wash dishes. Like, that's all downsides. But then quenching your hunger, or even just having the satisfaction of quenching your hunger in a specific way, you're like, yeah, I'm good taking on all these downsides because this one upside is worth it, right? And I think for me, that's the essence of a calculated risk. That's what, it's going to end.
I would agree, because with the whole watch conversation, you could even be knocked down by a car.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You could get food poisoning. Like, there's like so many different risks involved.
Yes, but besides doing all the calculation, knowing that these are the downsides and things, you probably have everything, but procrastination is a killer.
Yeah.
I'll use designers as an example. I'd want to build my portfolio. I'm going to build my portfolio. Agencies, we are going to revamp our website. We are going to redo, because probably to agencies, to designers, probably is a lot on your plate, right? It's easier to solve people's problems than your problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I don't think it's because there's a lot on your plate. I think it's because I've been an agency, being a creative, like we have a certain vision of perfection where we started from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the difference is when you're working for someone, you can somewhat be objective about what's good and what's not. There are constraints. If you have 3 months for the project, there's a budget. These are all very like strict constraints that forces you to take action. So even if you do the flyer or you do the landing page or the website and you don't feel like it's good enough, you still ship anyways because the client says the website has to go up on the 12th of April.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that. But the difference is when you're trying to do something for yourself, we take off all those constraints.
That's how I procrastinate.
Yes, that's part of why you procrastinate. I don't think it's the only reason, but then it's one of the major things because there are no constraints and there is this one-time banger, right? It's like, I want, like, when this drops, the earth must stop. And everybody goes and look like, wow, who are these guys, right? Is that imagination, that I think delays a lot of creative people because we are in our head about like the perfect one-time shot as opposed to looking for the quick iterations. And I am the complete opposite of that. Those who know me, I've changed my agency's website and name like 2 or 3 times in the last year, in the last 2 years.
Move from Kada to
Oxygen. And even Oxygen, we are redesigning Oxygen websites right now because when I had the idea for that website, I'm like, okay, here's what I think it should be. We waited for like 6 weeks from thinking about it. Then we took like 3 weeks, fleshed it out. It was incomplete, put it out. I looked at the analytics, I showed it to people. I'm like, yeah, this is not doing what I wanted to do. Okay, where do I need to go? What does the next version need to look like? So we're working on that right now. Right? And I think for me, that's something I learned from coming from like my tech background, working in tech companies, working with tech companies, is that this culture of quick iteration is one designers don't have. It's one, like creatives think creating something great happens once. We don't think of creation as this continuous iteration process to perfection, right? So a creative wants like, they will spend years on their website because they think it's like, but by the time they launch, it's old because the world has moved on so much. So then you go like, okay, nah, the design really work again. So we for start, right? That's why you can have an agency waiting for 6 years to launch their website and they haven't because they start this cycle of waiting for perfection and then it never happens, right? So for me, I've almost gotten to the point of being comfortable with shipping bad design.
Okay.
Like for things I'm doing, my websites are not complete. Some of my decks like aren't as complete as I want them to be, but like they have to go out. I set a deadline for myself, just like I'm a client. So if it goes to oxygen.com right now, it's an incomplete website because I took down the old website completely and I told my designer, we're going to build this in iteration. So right now when you go, you have the home page and you have the project summary page. That's it. But here's another thing. When you start, nobody will check for you like that.
True.
That's another thing I think people don't realize. I think we overestimate, is this thing called the spotlight bias? We overestimate how many people are looking at us, how many people are checking us out, like, and we think that, oh, like every little thing we do. When I changed from Kada to Oxygen, like 2 people texted me and went like, what's up? It means that 99.999% of people don't give 2 cents
about it.
They don't care, like, and it's fine because I'm in a state where I'm still trying to build, right? Now, of course, if I'm Nike and I change my website, everybody knows, right? If I'm Google and I change my website, everybody knows. If I'm big and I make those decisions, it matters. But most people aren't that big. Most people don't have that much attention, especially creative agencies. You aren't as hot as you think you are, and people aren't paying attention to you as much as you think they are. And that's not a bad thing. It's a blessing actually, because then you can tweak. You can move fast, you can try things out, you can experiment, right? So I think with creatives like waiting to put portfolios out and like their own agency website, is this mindset of thinking that the one time is the perfect time. And I'm like, it's not, especially if you're young and if you're small. So what you actually want to do is if you're young and you're small, you want to come up with as many hypotheses as possible and test them as quickly as you can, because that gives you data. So, oh, people like this, people didn't like that. People like, oh, that worked, that didn't work, all right, great. And by the time you're on your 15th iteration, you're like, okay.
It's better because I'm moving the people. I'm moving the people. Now you just be in isolation doing.
Yeah.
I think I said a similar story. You know, we changed our name from Sculptor with the R-E to Sculptor with the A.
Oh, that's what happened. Okay. I thought something changed, but I wasn't sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's actually, we actually have a whole story and a whole backend behind it. there are lots of fights in the office. People like siding why are we changing to the A? People are already used to the RE.
Yeah, the F is better. R is confusing.
Yeah. So all of these things, right? And we've had our website. We've been on our case studies for years, right? It's been close to 2 years. We're always waiting for. We've always been waiting for the perfect clients to do the right portfolio. I'll take it back to our earlier website. You had to take someone to say, "Hey, President, let's move." And
Yeah.
only for us, we found a lot of mistakes on the website. Where like, Charlie, we moved. But let's be honest, that website has actually has done us a lot of good.
Yeah.
Right. But this is us talking about waiting for the perfect time to get it done. Right. That is really one of the things that we think makes us procrastinate.
Yeah.
Or that why do we procrastinate?
Our budget theories actually.
Aside the whole perfection thing.
So aside perfection, there are reasons why you can procrastinate. One is the task is too big, it's overwhelming. Like, if a task is too big and you feel like you can't do it, you will procrastinate. Because it's just like, you can't get to it yet, right? So that's one reason why people procrastinate. And like another reason, because you want to do something, feel so big, it's like, Charlie. And that's what leads to you waiting for the perfect time. Because you feel like this thing is so big, like I need to clear space, I need to clear time before I can actually start taking action, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things aside, like, is like, and the way to solve that is just reduce it. Like, take the first step. It doesn't, checklists, life-changing. There is this quote, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. Right? So one of the things I've really come to use a lot myself, because I have these very big goals, is checklists. Like master checklists, which is, okay, I want to do this really big thing. Great, we're going to do it. But how do you achieve the big thing? It's a collection of small things, right? So what are all the small things that I need to do to get the big thing done? Just make a checklist of all those things. And once you make the checklist, just pick the first two. Forget that the rest exists. Your goal within the time in front of you is just get the first two things done. And then pick the next two. And then pick the next two. And then pick the next two. If you can keep that cycle going, you will eventually get to your goal. But I think when we have ideas, when we have things we want to do, we have this really big, like this grand vision, and then that gets overwhelming, and then we end up procrastinating, right? So that's one. Two, we also procrastinate because we don't know how to do the things we want to do. So if you have this thing that you want to achieve, and you can't mentally yourself go like, oh, here's how to go about it, you keep putting it off. Right? So it's like, yeah, Charlie, I don't want to do this thing. Why not do it, Charlie? I don't know. Or you feel like you don't have the resources, or you feel like either you don't have the process, you don't have the resources, or something is missing. You don't know how to approach the problem or the thing that you want to do. So you have this big dream, but it's like, how do I go about it? You end up putting it up, like, you keep putting it on, like, over and over, like, okay, we'll do it next, right? And the which is, like, that one is a little more tricky because you have to know it before you can solve it, right? If you don't know how to do something, the way to solve it is like get information. And the way to get information, like talk to somebody who's done it before, or make a Google search about how to do that thing. It's as simple as that, right? So if you change this thing, it's actually very easy to take action because one, you're breaking, even if you have a big goal and you don't know how to do it, looking for how to do it will show you the smaller steps you need to take. You break it down to the smaller steps, you pick the first two, and then you're off to the races, right? So it's like perfection, I don't know, what to do or how to approach it. This thing feels too big. Or the other thing could just be you don't have any stakes. There's nothing at stake.
Okay.
So give me an example. And side note, I talk about this is because I suffer from them the most than most people do. I think that's why I spend a lot of time trying to understand them, right? I want to launch a conference later in the year. It's called Creatives and Money because, it's an eternal problem, right? And I think most creatives don't understand how to handle the money side of things. All right, cool. It's a big conference. It's fantastic. Multiple speakers, fire venue. Like, hopefully we'll make tons of money doing it, helping tons of people.
Looking forward to it.
Maybe even launch some products on the back of that. This really big thing, right? And I'm like, okay. This thing is big. But we are designers. So what's the first thing you do? Find a name, right? Find a brand, get a domain. Like, those things come easiest, but at least for me, they get me going, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I hit up like one of the designers in my network. I'm like, yo, this is the idea. I got some Pinterest, sent him a bunch of mood boards. Then he sends me, and that's the thing. I'll give you a deadline. I'm like, I need this in 3 days because I know that if I tell you that take your time, I won't get it back. You'll be dreaming, right? So he sends me a few iterations. I saw it. I'm like, hey, this could work, but it really doesn't work. I sent it to another creative friend of mine. He gave me the same feedback. It doesn't work. I went back to him. I'm like, this doesn't work. Let's hop on a call. We got on a call. Then I was looking through his artboard. I'm like, that one. That's it. That's the thing, right? Then we got the logo done. Now, okay, now we have the logo. Build a language for me. You have another 3 days. We went through. We got a language. I'm like, this is not quite there yet. Let's get on a call. We got on a call. I saw the language. I'm like, here's the vision of what I want to achieve, right? Another 3-4 days, he got it done, right? And then I'm like, okay, now we need to go test this. So we have a conference, maybe September, I don't even know, right? But the CM chats, all the webinars I've been doing, it is the single steps to building up to that conference, testing our topics, testing our speakers, seeing engagement.
Okay.
So most people get stuck on like the big conference thing. But I'm like, yeah, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about topics, right? Yeah, so put out a simple thing. Let's have a conversation about the topics, I think. So last session was about business overall. We have a session tomorrow, Friday, at the time of the filming. We're talking about business skills for introverts. Because that was something that came up on the last session. When the guest was talking about all these different things, and somebody goes like, hey, there we introverts there, there's no hope for us. And I'm like, but I know a bunch of introverts who've done it. So that thing may happen in December. Now, here's why I'm telling you this long story. Throughout this entire process, I've engaged other people, so I come back out. I did not feel like doing the session this Friday. As of yesterday, I didn't feel like doing it. But then I already told the guests that we're doing it on Friday, and he has sent me a topic and his picture. If I don't go through with that, my reputation is at stake. If I go back to that guy with something in the future, he no go base me and be like, Charlie, all the ideas are, right? So there is something at stake for me to keep. I was planning a masterclass on pricing. I've recorded half the videos. I've lost interest. But I engaged a developer to help me set up the platform. His time is invested. So now I have to go through it. Right? So in personal development circles, they are called commitment devices, right? Things that will push you to follow through. So if you have so I do that all the time. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this by Friday. Otherwise, I owe you like 50 cities, 100 cities, 150. Like my first agency website, kda.co, I was delaying it for so long. I told a friend, if I don't get this up by February 2022 or 2023, I owe you $1,500. I didn't have $1,500. And he was serious about collecting.
So make sure you did it.
Did you guys it?
If I'm getting you, one of the reasons why we procrastinate is one, we see a bigger task, we need to break them down. Two, we are wait for the perfect timing. So we need to always get it done and be iterative about the process. Finally, we really don't feel there's anything at stake.
Yeah, there's nothing at stake.
I think it brings us back to Sculptor. This year we are saying we are going all out, and our mantra is to do big things. And what we've really done this year, so it's actually on 3 pillars. It's what we call the 3 T's: tell, train, track. Tell is basically, I want to do it. If you want to do it, one, you need an audience, right? So no matter how minute the task is, you need to say it.
Right. Yeah.
Train is really what how you need to get ready. So we have what we call daily diffs. Daily diffs is basically daily challenges. So if it's a designer, you'd have to previous probably monographs a week. Monographs every day in the week. If it's a writer, you're basically writing an article every week. If it's culture, you're doing. Like, it's basically you groom and train everybody to get the capacity that you want. Track is basically what we've divided the year into 4 main parts. So we are not handling this year as a full year. First is what we are calling kick. It ends in March, right?
Yeah.
And we are basically tracking every single time from the milestones we set for ourselves, what the KPIs and things, right? So just as you're saying, right now everybody feels there's something at stake.
Yeah.
Last year, I think everybody was really like,
actually, because there's time.
Yes, and to be honest, when we really look at what we've been able to achieve in this, we actually resumed. It was the second week we did 2 weeks at home in January. Right, we went on a long break. But if you really compare about 2.5 months, it's not even 2.5 months, just 2 months, what we've been able to do. This is one of them. This run-up podcast
Yeah.
is one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, really, we need to break that into smaller pieces, as you're saying. You should always have something at stake.
Always. Even if it's just your reputation, or if you've told somebody they are going to do it.
Yes. There's a final procrastination bit that I think is a big elephant in everybody's room. Money.
Oh.
You find everybody says, you find everyone saying, I can't start
Yeah, because
I need money.
like, again, big fallacy. Like,
You wait, do we need money to start?
no, it's a hard no. Like, money is the last thing you need to start. I'm making a guess about the audiences here. Now, here's why mostly don't need money to start. What does money get you? If you're going to start something like, okay, I need money. Why do you need money? Let's play this out. Why do you think you need money?
I need money to buy a domain.
Okay.
I need money to register my company.
Okay.
If I'm doing product, like physical product, I need money to buy the product.
Okay.
I need money to... Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about all those things. You need money to buy domains.
Yeah.
False. You can get a bunch of free things hosted up for free without paying for the domain. And again, if you're starting, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Your thing can be a Google site and nobody cares.
So let's say I want to build a directory for businesses.
Airtable is free. So go to airtable.com, create a free account. The free account gives you more than enough to create like a directory. You host it, is your domain /airtable.com, and that's it.
I want to start building cars.
Great. That you need money to do, right? Because you need to acquire parts, you need to buy things. But again, most people are not in that situation. They're not trying to build cars. Most people are trying.
This is actually a starting thing. I want to start, but I want to build cars.
Okay, so let's say you want to build cars, right? That's a really big task. So let's go to the thing that we did before. What are the smaller tasks involved in building like a car, right? Do you have a design for the car? Okay, maybe not. Okay, maybe I need to pay for design. Okay, or maybe you need to find the person who can design for you and offer them a partnership. So they design the car for you in exchange for equity.
Okay.
Then you started.
Problem one solved.
Do you get what I'm saying? Now you have a design for the car. You can now look for somebody, say, hey, we're thinking about this problem. We have a design, we're supposed to like 4 customers. Here's our research. We need some early partners to get us involved, to get us going, right?
Step 2.
Step 2. Then maybe you get somebody who comes on again for equity. So they might give you a little money.
Okay.
Or you go and find like an R&D lab or Volkswagen or BMW or somebody. You go like, hey, here's the design we have for a new car. Like, we want to work full time for a lab, like give you the ideas for free, test it out. Right? Like, money is not a thing. Money typically gives us access to resources. And when you're starting out, you can trade resources without having money. And too many people get caught up on the fact that I need money. Right? There are some things that, yes, you need money here and there. But let's say you want to start a physical product, right? It's the same game plan. First, I need a design for the product. Right?
Sell food.
You want to sell food?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say any kind of food.
Any kind of food.
Okay. What
Choose
is
a
it?
food. Maybe let's do wache. Since
Okay, I want to sell wache. What do I need to sell wache? Like, first, I need to actually like cook the wache, right? But if I need to cook the wache, I need to buy ingredients. Okay. Say I don't have money to buy the ingredient, because that's like the very, very first process. Do I have something I can trade in exchange for ingredients? Can I go to the bean seller and go like, hey, I need 2 cities worth of beans. I don't have any money. Do you have any errands or tasks that you need to get run that I can do for you in exchange for like 1 long carb beans? Here are the other skill sets that I have. Like, you see, before we go to money, so let's talk about money. Like, I have this course on money that I didn't get serious about pushing, but let's talk about what's money. Money is basically a store of value, right? Money is an abstracted like medium that we use to exchange value. And if you go far back in the history of money, before money showed up, we were trading value for value.
Yeah.
Right? It still works today. But because money exists as that medium, everybody goes to money first because they think, okay, that's the easiest thing to do. And in lots of cases it is, right? Because barter trading requires trust. It requires somebody to need what you need, what you have before they can do the exchange with you. So having money is something everybody universally wants. So when you have money, you can go like, okay, here's money. Okay, I'll give you what you want. But when you don't have money, the question is, can you still get the things you need? And the answer is yes. And it simply goes to, what do you have to trade? You may not have a skill, but you may know somebody, have a relationship that can give you the leverage. So when you have it at the back of your mind that, okay, I need money to start, you will never start because you never need money, you never have money to start. But if you go like, okay, I can literally trade out my way into getting like other resources from other people, you will find somebody needs something. One of the best way I get access to people is to just look at what they're doing, look at what they need, look at what I have to offer, and go like, hey, I'll do this thing to you for free. And they go like, yeah, sure, why not? I fumbled like one of those biggest opportunities last year because I was just, for so many different reasons, but I was able to get access to like the CEOs of one of the biggest web design firms in the world just by doing that. I followed his LinkedIn, I followed him for, I'm like, hey, here's who I am. I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. I want to do these things for you in exchange to just be in your circle and to have your time and to like listen to you. I was like, yeah, I was looking for these things anyway, so let's do it. You need resources. You need relationships. You don't need money. Right? So if you can actually learn, and I think relationships are the most important thing because any resource you need, somebody else has. And somebody else has access to. And that is why I give a lot. I do a lot of free classes and free trainings and free workshops. And I was like, why are you not doing this? Why are you not charging? If I tell you the number of people that have come around to do things for me for free because they were in one of those free courses and they found it useful, you'll be blown away. Right? So it's about relationships and resources. Money is a type of resource. Money can get you resource and relationships. Like, if you're not making a transaction and there's money involved, we don't need a relationship. Money serves as a gap between you and I having to build a relationship because I give you money, give me what I need. But if I don't have money and I need you to do a favor for me, then I need to build a relationship, right? So I think you need resources, you need relationships, and you need to understand this basic concept of barter trading. What do you have to offer in exchange for what you need? If you can solve those problems, 99% of the time, in my opinion, you can launch without spending it's the 21st century. There are so many free tools and so many free resources that you can leverage to allow you, that you want to sell a product, go to Midjourney and generate like a mock-up of the product and go to somebody and go like, hey, I'm trying to sell this thing. Like, do you think it'd be useful? Okay, how much will you buy it for? It's like, okay. And that's another thing. Oftentimes, when we have ideas and want to solve problems and want to do things, right? Especially when it comes to businesses, we don't spend enough time on the problem. We spend too much time about the idea of what we think the solution is. Does that make sense? Most people, when they have businesses and they're trying to start things, like it's all about, okay, here's my idea. And there are cases where that idea is unique and it's interesting. But here's the thing. You first need to know who gives a damn.
True.
And usually you don't need money for that. Because even with raising funds and all these things, if we can get enough people that gives a damn about the problem, a few of them will be willing to give you money up front for you to try it out. Because they need a solution so bad.
Yes, money. I think money limits you. It limits you in how you think, right? To wrap up this whole money conversation, right? A lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs are chasing funding, right? To be honest with you, this is really my opinion. That's good. It's cool.
Yeah.
But is it the way to go? Really?
For some businesses, yes. For other businesses, no. So this is something I learned from the guys at Y Combinator. I don't even know if I can properly articulate it. But when you start a business, there are different categories of risks, right? It's a lot. But let's go to a few. There's a founder risk, right? It's like, okay, are these the right people to solve the problem? There is something called the problem or the opportunity risk. Is this the opportunity that's big enough? Like, do people care about this, right? Then you have the cost risk, right? How much is it going to take us to do this? You have the time risk. How long is it going to take us to do this, right? So at the beginning of any venture, you have all these different categories of risks. What money does is that money allows you to offset a lot of these risks at once. So if I have an idea and I'm supposed to raise $1 million or $2 million, what happens is that it allows me to offset my resource risk because now I can go hire people, right? It allows me to set a bit of my time risk. So now with the right people, I can develop faster, I can go to market faster, right? But then there's still other risks that I need to take care of. So the whole point of raising money is that's why they call them hyper growth startups, is to accelerate the speed at which you're able to like execute by taking care of a lot of these risks that you have, right? Now, with that said, as of 2024, raising money has become a game of perception to raise more money. And I can say this confidently because I've worked in tech startups and I'm working with tech startups, right? It's not really about substance or solving the problem. It's about, can we create an illusion to raise more money? And it's very complicated because it's also about the industry, the markets, the wave. And when you look at how VCs work, they're happy to throw away $200 million because one $20 million check will make them $500 million. And at the end of the day, they are $3 million in profits. And that's all they're looking for. So when something is hot, VCs will go. Because for them, it's a numbers game, right? So you might think, oh, VC is giving you $2 million. Like for them, it's almost like giving you 10 cities. Because they're writing 20 of those checks in a month with the hope that one of them will become a unicorn that can get to the $1 billion status, right? So the whole raising money thing, I think it's a very complex thing that we probably can't get into now. But the point is that for some businesses to move fast, you need to raise money. With that said, I think a lot of the people in our side of the world, Ghana, West Africa, Africa trying to build businesses, should focus on bootstrapping instead of trying to raise money. Because like raising money is easy. If you can prove a few things, you get a seed check. Agreed. But if you have to bootstrap, you need to do the actual hard work. You need to go and solve real problems for real human beings in exchange for real money. And that is hard. And most people don't want to do that work. So when I was in tech, became so disillusioned with the whole raising money culture, I started looking into bootstrapping. So I became a very big fan of like actually bootstrapping and trying to make money from day one. First day, me tonkoko 2 cities, and I made it for 1 city 50 pesos. I make 50 cities profits, right? And I think most people will actually benefit from trying to build businesses like that instead of trying to like raise money, right? So there are cases where I'm like, sure, go raise the money because it's necessary. Yeah. But there are cases where I'm like, again, it's not for everybody. For most people, you want to build a small idea, you really don't need money. Like,
agreed.
Solve the problem, let somebody pay you, reinvest that capital, and keep going until like you get to the top.
Very much agreed. I think we sometimes spend some people spend a lot of time looking for funding instead of really doing the real work.
Yep.
Data over emotions.
Data over emotions, and trying to do what?
Start.
We're
using the Wache. I want to start business. I want to start Wache. Data. Over 30 people buy Wache every day in this very location. Emotions. I think when I start Wache, I'll attract 30,000 people.
Okay.
In this X location. What's your take? Emotions, data.
Both. So that's the first thing.
To be honest, I want you to.
No. Yeah, like it's both. Because everybody thinks it has to be an all well. It's like, is that this or that? It's not. It's this and that. So here's the thing. For certain things and at certain scales of investment, you want a guarantee of return. So you need some data. Right? So let's say if you and I are starting that watching business, so let's say person A, person B, right? You know, you're like, okay, if I start this watching person, I'm going to attract people because I'm going to start cooking from my house. I'll start using these things that I have. I'll just start selling from my hood, right? That's you. And I want to start a chain of physical watching stores across the country. And let's say I've spoken to like 3 of my friends. They put together 200 million cities. We're ready to do that. Yes, we both want to start, but it's like, what's the scale of the risk? If I'm going to put 200 million into starting a chain of watching stores across the country, I need some data, right? Because the risk is pretty high. So I need to make sure that I have that initial thing of like, okay, we think there are 500 million people eating YG and potentially we can capture 100 million of those people. We can sell an average person for like, maybe 10 cities. So that's like maybe $1 billion. So if you put 200 million in, it makes sense.
Okay.
So in that case, I need some data. But again, most of us are trying to build like watch chains. In that case, start. Regardless of the data. You feel like starting, start. But here's the thing. You start with your eyes wide open. So as you go, you pay attention to what's happening. So that emotional boost is very useful. See here, please be emotional about your ideas and the things that you want to start. Because when you're emotional about something, it puts you in a very delirious state. Like you're not thinking straight, so you're enthusiastic. So you're more likely to like take actions. So at a very small scale, leverage that. I can't tell you how many projects I started emotionally and then after the first 3 days, I'm like, challenge. This thing will go anywhere. But here's the thing. I said both because when you have that emotion, get going. But your goal is not to ride on that emotion forever because you fade out. Your goal is now that you've gotten going, start getting information that will guide your next step. So remember from the beginning of the conversation, I said that starting is like the engine that will shape the gem or bring the gem out of the rough, right? So you get going and then you start paying attention to the reality. Oh, people don't really like watching like that. It's like, okay, cool. What do they like? Okay, maybe they like the rice and the beans separate. Okay, make I try that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then you start taking data and then you start making adjustments as you go. And where you start from, it don't look like where you ended. Now, the opposite is you will never start if you're waiting to go and find the data about how many people are buying watching before you start.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, it's actually easier to like get going. So in I think in startups, so there's this thing called start, grow, scale, something like that, which is like get started, get stable, and then now you can shoot for the roofs. Too many people are thinking about the last stage whilst you're just in the getting started phase, right? But it's like, just get started. Like, you have an idea for something, I don't care. And I talk about this thing so passionately because I'm the #1 victim. And every day, I have to find tools and resources and hacks to fight, like, all this is we're talking about, right? But it's usually about where in the other agencies before Sculptor popped up?
Come again?
Where in the other agencies before Sculptor popped up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
if you wanted to look at the data of how many agencies there were in Ghana, do you think you start
to be
Sculptor?
honest, we were really discouraged because looking at all the classifiers and directories, you're like, wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then, is a Sculptor here? Is a Sculptor making money? Did you start because you had all the data that proves that it was good to start? Exactly. And that's how most things are, right? Like, can you count how many watches sellers there are in your hood? But they all show up every day.
Yeah.
And they all get business, right? So I think it's not either or. In certain cases, you need data. You need some hypothesis because you're going to put in a lot of, but for most people starting things, it's you and your energy. That's the only risk. So get started and then take information, evolve, and then data becomes your friend as you go, right? But from the beginning, be emotional, in my opinion. Don't be emotional with your father's money.
To be honest with you, I think I don't even use emotions, I'll use instinct.
Yeah. Here's one last thing. So when I'm teaching branding students, like when I'm teaching branding classes, there's this thing that I show all the time. If you have a pie, that's like 100%, right? I think 75 to 80% of building a successful business or product is about the market. What do people want? Majority of the time. Like, because if nobody wants it, you're going to have to work so hard to create that demand. Most people don't have that ability. So if you want to catch fish, you're better going where the fish is, right? So 80% of the time, starting something successful, especially a business, it's about like going in a direction what people already want. But then 20% of what makes that pie complete is your own unique instincts about how to solve that problem.
Agreed.
So most people think it's either or. They think, oh, it's either you're like this genius, you slept in your room and you just thought about this incredible idea, or you're only following the markets. It's like, again, it's both. Because the market has demands and the market is the one with the money, so the market determines where the money goes. But what differentiates Sculptor from all the other agencies that exist is your own unique perspective on the world. That makes a specific groups of clients go like, we want to work with these guys, right? So when you have that in mind, you can start with that 20%. It's like, here's my instincts about this. Like, I'm actually in the process of working towards launching Oxygen. Not because I don't think they are cool agencies, but I think there's no agency solving creative problems the way I want to solve them. And the way I know certain people are spoken to needs those problems solved. I think most creative agencies are too scared, they're too timid, there's not enough risk taking, but also most creative agencies don't understand the business rubrics of how to actually use the thing they're creating to deliver business results. I'm a business nerd. I think I have a huge insight into that transition, and I want to build an agency that makes some guarantees and is able to produce like solutions in a way that's like, okay, this is different, right? I'm not for everybody, but that's my instinct, right? But if I look at the data, Charlie,
I know, right?
I'll be discouraged.
That'll lead me to community. It's a big word these days. Build a community. Build a community.
Yeah, so what about communities?
Should I start with a community? Do I need to build a community? How do I even build a community? with whatever I'm doing. If it's running an agency, if it's even doing designing just patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's even doing what I'm doing, even if it's the watch, do I need to build a community?
Yeah, so first let's start by defining what a community is, right? Like, for me, I think a community is a group of people that essentially have, they bought into a similar culture, a similar way of seeing the world, a similar way of experiencing the world, and a similar way of like enjoying things, right? Or but they bought into basically like a particular perspective of the world, right? So, and one person can be in multiple communities. That's another thing, right? But that's kind of like what a community is, in my opinion, the essence of it. So, with that said, should you build a community? Yes. And here's why it's kind of important. 2 reasons. One, the world is getting so blended. Everything is getting like
The same.
technology is improving. We have access to the same resources. We can all do very similar things. So then once you are there, the question becomes, what's the differentiating factor? And it's culture, right? It's like, oh, we all create wache, but the green leaf community believes that you should only eat wache in this most natural form possible. So there's no packs here, there's no rubber here, it's only green leaves. But if you're like, hey, we believe that wache should be eaten in the most natural form, then everybody else is like, yeah, we believe in sustainability, we think the world is green, the world should be green. They're like, okay, this is the guy who wants to buy wache from. Not because the wache he's selling is any different from the one the other person is selling, but because the way he's selling it is built on a philosophy that I identify with, right? That's so, as the world things get more equalized, technology becomes more accessible, everybody can create almost the exact same things, culture becomes the differentiating factor between how people make decisions about which brands or which businesses to buy, right? So it's important for you to have a community. Now, with that said, should that be your number one problem if you're just getting started? No. The number one problem when you're getting started is to really understand the problem you're trying to solve and who you're solving it for, and giving them a solution that they like and they want. Maybe you realize that the problem is that there are a bunch of sustainability enthusiasts that want to eat wache in green leaves, right? But you're not starting with this notion of trying to build a community. You're starting with trying to solve a problem. And if you listen enough and you pick the right problem, it may lead you to forming the right community, right? So for example, you can say that I now have a community of like creative talents, right? But I just kind of started out trying to share what I know about creating business and the business side of things, because I realized nobody was doing it from this side that looked like me. And all the examples were like people I couldn't relate with.
True.
But over time, that has formed a community of creatives who are interested in the business side of things, who like my take on the world, right? So now, like, okay, how do we nurture this? What kind of topics do you guys want to hear? So I do a poll, they tell me, and then we do series on those topics, right? So I can now grow the community. So I think in the world that we're getting into, it's important. Whether you're a brand or an individual, like start thinking what culture, what philosophies, what perspectives of the world do we have or do we want to take that can attract certain groups of people, right? And it provides some defensibility to your brand. It provides some defensibility to your business, right? And the second reason why you actually want to build a community is that it's easier as a business to make more money from the same customer than to acquire new customers all the time, right? So like, it's more, and I would say it's more expensive to acquire new customers. So if you have a unique philosophy, it means that everything you do aligns with that philosophy. And majority of the time, the people that agree with that philosophy will patronize the thing just because they believe in that philosophy.
Great.
Right? So what a community does for you is that it allows you to, it's almost like generate recurring revenue from the same customer over time without having to acquire new customers. And it also makes the customer, it also makes it cheaper for you to acquire new customers because they're probably coming through from word of mouth, from other members of the community who already see value in what you're providing, right? So if you want to think about community, I'm like, those are the 2 reasons why I'm going to go like, the world is getting blended, unique perspective. If you're able to build one, that unique perspective makes it likely for you to increase the lifetime value, LTV, of one customer, and makes it cheaper to acquire the next customer, right? With that said, it's not for every business. Most people just need to it's a commodity. You trade on price, you trade on scale, and that's it, right? And I think the mistake is like, a lot of businesses and products and brands trying to build community and not doing it right because they don't understand what it is, and they don't understand how it fits into the unique thing that they are creating, right? So that's kind of like my take on community and how you should use it.
There's this local, what we call seamstress, as a tailor, right? That was able to build a community on WhatsApp.
Fine.
Which I really found cool, right? What she did was she didn't do a group, she did a broadcast group. Where what she does is any trending clothes, she drops it on the
Smart.
on that broadcast group, and the next thing is if
People want
I
it.
want this, can I get this and that? Even aside the same style, what it did was that it reminded people that exist.
Yep.
Because somebody probably is not even thinking of having a new clothes. But the fact that she's seen something, oh, I even have a wedding coming up, I'll need this.
Yeah.
Right.
But she's also solving a real problem for those people, right? Because typically what happens is if I try to sew something, I need to now go find a style, think about this, go do my own research. But the fact that I have this tailor that's good, or seamstress that's good, I'm trusted as like, hey, here's a new style. It's like she's done a lot of work. It's like I don't have to think about it. It's like, okay, can I get that?
Exactly.
That's sick.
Well, yeah, so I think communities, yes, in as much as we look at the big picture, the Discords, the Slack groups, and all those big communities, I think, we could.
All my communities are also on WhatsApp.
That's cool. I don't like WhatsApp.
I think you should fall in love with it because in our side of the world, it's more potent, especially if you're dealing with individuals and even businesses, even like.
To be honest, all my WhatsApps are muted. I have a reason, right? I think I easily lose focus.
Yeah.
Like, probably I'm going to one or two, then the next day I see something else enough, and I lose focus.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Right. So I let everyone know that I don't do WhatsApp. If you've sent anything important, let me know.
Yeah, that's fair.
The clients here, we always do mail. In-house work, we use Slack, so 24/7. Once I see anything like Slack,
you know that is important.
Exactly. I think we can continue.
Yeah, we can continue talking
and do this for. Probably would have to do a part 2. Probably. But in wrapping up, we've spoken about community, and then you brought in the whole big technology, making everyone do things, getting a lot of tools and resources. That means you're able to access different markets from anywhere, right? I'd want you to speak to our audience, how they can tap into the whole big pool of resources to meet the whole global village. That's the word, that's a global village.
You need to get curious about whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? So I think progress a lot of time is a function of environment. Where you put yourself influences a lot of things about what you can do, how you see the world, your perspective. And there are different kinds of environment, right? One of my favorites recently is like your mental environment. So the one hack I have for people is follow the people online, especially, who are doing the things you want to do. It's as simple as that. Because the people who are doing the things you want to do are probably going to the places you want to go, are reading the things you want to read. They are looking for the things that you may want to find. So for most, especially creatives and people, I'm like, have a goal of, okay, here's where I'm trying to go, right? And who else is doing something similar? Follow them. That creates a mental environment. Because what you see on a daily basis on your feed, because you all spend time on social media now, shapes your perspective. The things I'm telling you, a lot of them were learned and experienced from just following certain people and seeing it and following up and interacting with it, right? So the very first thing is like, just follow people that are doing the things you want to do, right? And the second thing would be to actually believe that it's possible to access those markets. My most consistent client in the last 2 years, I work from New York. I live in Ghana. Never been to the US before. Not yet anyways. I've been on calls with the UN. I've been in groups with some of the biggest brands in the world, people working for them. Because I get on LinkedIn and I share my thoughts and then I send people messages and I ask, can I get on a call with you? And I make pitches and I have conversations, right? So I think first just follow the right people. And that will eventually lead you to like the tools they use. And like a lot of the resources I know, I didn't find them. Somebody I'm following went like, hey, do you know that's possible? Have you seen this tool? So that's why I use my Instagram for. My Instagram is a curation of people that are talking about tools, resources, right? So if you have an idea of where you want to go, and then you find people over time who are doing those things, and you're very curious about the world, I think those are like practical. You will discover things because there are so many tools. I can tell you, go here, go there, look this, look that, right? But I think if you do those 3 things, you will actually be in a consistent state of discovering things. And then the last part is doing is better. Take a shot, right? Try something. Like send somebody a DM, ask them for something, post something, like give it a shot, because then you get feedback that will enable you to keep going, right? So set a goal, follow the right people, be curious, take some shots, right? If you can do those 4 things, I think you can eventually start leveraging like all these different things that we spoke about.
Great view on that. As good as I get.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I did too. So I think we should start. What are the ideas? You should start. Doing is better, and we say make possible.
Yeah.